Story 1. Constant complaining and everything being negative to them. Story 2. Unable to see the nuance in situations. Black and white thinking. Story 3. He wanted me to urinate on him, but not in the way you might think. He wanted to sit on the toilet and urinate while I sat on his lap and urinated at the same time. Story 4. At first, she seemed very friendly, smiling, open, and getting along well with everyone. Then I noticed that she was telling everyone different gossip about others, and not in the best light. I thought, who will be telling all sorts of things about me in 5 minutes? The trust disappeared faster than it appeared. Story 5. Realizing she had no compassion for any other human being and was only interested in herself, I realized she was a narcissist after the initial love bombing wore thin. I am kind of glad she lived far away because she was intense in bed. It would have been easy to become addicted. Story 6. Hated all men but said I was different. Degraded me when I did not want to have sex with her. I had only known her for a few days. Her perspective and opinions were all influenced by TikTok. Many more. Story 7. We were vibing at a party when another guest said it looked like we were dating. This guy immediately denied it and adamantly stated multiple times that we were not dating, to the point where I felt I must be repulsive. Any attraction I had evaporated in that moment and never returned. Years later, the same guy told me he had always had feelings. So, I guess public rejection is what killed it for me. Story 8. Smoking cigarettes. I have a bad chest and cannot tolerate any kind of smoke or aerosol. I had to stop. Story 9. Finally, I had the courage to ask her out, and we went to a restaurant. She treated the waitstaff like servants. Story 10. She was against vaccines and really wanted children. Sorry, I would like my children to reach adulthood and not suffer or die from easily preventable diseases. Story 11. Racist jokes. Extreme jealousy and possessiveness that turned aggressive. Treated his parents very poorly. I loved his parents. They were adorable. Story 12. When she has to be the center of attention everywhere we go, I finally have had enough. Story 13. They placed their shopping cart on the curb instead of returning it to the designated cart return. Story 14. Negative behavior affected me. I thought she was gorgeous, but her way of flirting was essentially to bully me and then not take me seriously when I said it upset me and hurt my feelings. Now, years later, she still messages me every few months and does not seem to understand why I drifted away from her altogether. Story 15. Manipulative behavior aside, it was her elitism and laughing about poor people and those who do not live in wealthy areas of the city. That was my moment of realization that connected everything. Story 16. Just vanished, acted like nothing happened. Then suddenly called, invited me to a local place we used to frequent. She proceeded to tell me she was seeing a younger man and expected me to be okay with that. I changed my number and have never seen her since. Story 17. His mouth tasted like blood when I kissed him, and my mouth tasted the same afterward. When I asked him about it, he admitted that he rarely brushed his teeth and knew he had poor dental hygiene. Story 18. I wore his hoodie, and he smelled just like my biological father. I couldn't do it. He also pressured me to say yes to the relationship, so I was barely feeling it anyway. Story 19. She said that she wanted a boyfriend so that he could take care of everything and pay for everything while still taking her on trips. I was not on her list of interests, but hearing that definitely killed my attraction to her. Story 20. Non-stop vaping. The secondhand nicotine was noticeable and unpleasant. She wondered why her dog had anxiety. Maybe it was from all the vape smoke blown in his face. Story 21. Right-wing ideology combined with a healthy dose of ignorance. He insisted hippos were carnivores. Story 22. He was on his phone the entire time we hung out except when he wanted to have sex. Story 23. It is always challenging when one person depends on the other. It is the most unattractive thing. When both can be and want to be independent yet still choose each other, that is a golden relationship. Story 24. She became emotionally manipulative. She would try to guilt me into doing things her way or set small ultimatums about trivial matters. I am very open to hearing people's concerns and trying to compromise, but I detest manipulation. Story 25. My passenger side visor had a screw loose and was hanging down slightly, so he reached up, ripped it out of the roof of my car, and threw it in the back seat. I pulled over on the side of the highway and made him get out. I do not tolerate any kind of violence. Story 26. They were not interested in me. You cannot force someone to like you, so it is best to put those feelings aside. Story 27. Tried to pressure me into something I already said no to. Story 28. My friend told me he once punched a wall while struggling to build IKEA furniture and said, "I wouldn't do that to a woman though." She followed up by retelling how he did indeed punch a woman and that his defense was, "She weighs more than me and is ugly, so it's fine." Story 29. He was negative all the time, and his entire life revolved around surviving hour by hour. I feel pity but not attraction because it is so miserable to be around someone like that constantly. I had a rough childhood, but I do not dwell on it. I try to focus on bettering myself, positivity, and hope for a brighter future. Story 30. She is a self-centered narcissist who finds every excuse to get offended by something. Did not compliment the earrings she wore today? Offended. Literally small, insignificant things like that. When hanging out with her in a group versus without her, the mood completely changes. We do not have to walk on eggshells when she is not around. Story 31. The second a guy I am interested in mentions cocaine, I am out. I find it so gross and unattractive and usually indicative of immaturity. I am in my 30s now. It has never been my thing. I have been around people who do it and decided I really dislike what it does to people. Story 32. He made a confession one evening while drinking that in high school at a party he participated in a gangbang with friends. I try not to judge, but hearing that immediately changed my feelings from warm to cold. I just could not unhear that. Story 33. One of my first crushes in college was a girl from the same town, and we had been friends. She paid me some attention, so I was stuck in her orbit for a while. Then I realized she flirted with everyone. It was like her default setting. She flirted because she thought it was funny. It was hard to explain. It made me think, I am not special to her. And I moved on. Story 34. Started talking about how crazy all his former partners were. Whenever I tried to talk about something I was interested in, he would ignore what I said and change the subject back to himself. Story 35. Was dating him. Things were going smoothly. It became a red flag that we never went to his house. One day I received a call not from him, but from his mother, whom I had never spoken to before. She informed me she had kicked her son out of their house for smoking methamphetamine in the laundry room and was bringing him and all his belongings to live with me. I politely told her he was not welcome anywhere near my house. I blocked their numbers and went on with my day. Dodged that bullet. Story 36. He was all I wanted for 2 years. I knew he was struggling with his mental health. I got him into therapy, he moved in with me, we officially became a couple, and marriage was on the table. Then I fetched the cat I had left with an ex to finally bring him home to live with me after buying my house. My boyfriend had been weird about animals, cats in particular, but Pilot was a peach. I figured his sweet disposition and cute tuxedo pattern could win anyone over. My boyfriend proceeded to be the fussiest and sulkiest over Pilot. He meows too loud. He wants to be around you too much. No, he can't come in the bed. Pilot was actively dying either from irritable bowel syndrome or intestinal cancer at that point. He was on hospice, and I knew my remaining time with him was short. I watched my boyfriend push the cat away with his foot so he could have me to himself on the couch. I was so stunned. If I could go back, I would have confronted him, and I wish I had spent the night on the couch with Pilot. Pilot only lived another 9 months. He is buried in my yard. My boyfriend hung on for longer, but not much before I asked him to leave. Story 37. He passed gas in response to his mother when she was trying to talk to him. He was 20 years old. Story 38. When he told me, I have been with larger girls before, because I am bigger. Story 39. She said I would be a perfect partner if I were not autistic and then ignored me for a month. Story 40. I didn't text him one morning because I was starting a new job. We had only been talking for maybe 2 weeks, if even that. He blew up at me, saying, "Guess you found someone at your new job already. I worked with mostly women, and I'm not interested in women." Then he tried calling me twice in a row, told me I'm a liar, and said I'm full of myself. But I guess it was a blessing in disguise because his recent baby's mother has a protective order against him, and he only talks about his oldest child. He has 2 kids now, an older son who is about 12 with his ex-wife, and a roughly 1-year-old from a woman who has her new address sealed against him. Later, he texted me a non-apology, saying, "I didn't mean to say anything to make you mad," but never actually apologized. Story 41. They had many ferrets, and their house smelled like it. Story 42. She put her children second. I am a single father. It bothered me. Story 43. She told me she has psychic visions of who Donald Trump's enemies were and would pass that information to him. She said his people were using the information to protect him. I opted out after that. Story 44. He is so sexy, cute, and sweet, but he always does impressions of characters like Scooby-Doo, the Hobbit guy, and Daffy Duck. It is so cringe, and it gives me the ick so badly. Sometimes I just start kissing him to make him stop, and it makes me feel like a bad person. Story 45. With women who like intellectual interests, it is often the social mistakes made by intellectual men that end up pushing women away. This includes being inexperienced at interacting with the opposite sex, insecurities, depression, and similar issues. I really want to date a woman who I can share these interests with, or at least spend time with a woman for the same reason. There are some women who do not work on themselves and end up pushing me away. Story 46. He was easily attracted to beautiful women. Visual appearance seems to be an important factor for him. Not that I do not understand. It is fine. Story 47. Things were going very well a week in, and then he started being sexual and talking about how hard his penis was when he woke up. He asked if I could do something about it, and I just got the ick. Story 48. It turned out she had a boyfriend she was cheating on with me. Story 49. My boyfriend refused to take me on a single date and refused to drive me. I drove every time we went out. Story 50. He blocked me from going into a shared office because he said I was too much of a distraction. I do not even know what that means. I mostly did research with AirPods in. Story 51. After refusing to be seen in public with me for 1.5 years, he posted a story on Snapchat of himself on a date with someone else who looked nothing like me. She was very traditional and basic, and I was not. We were not officially dating, but he did not even tell me he was seeing someone else. I felt completely used and blocked him without ever reaching out again. Another person I pursued for 2 years, worshiping the ground he walked on. It was really pathetic, and I wish I could take it all back. He was such a jerk, but I still felt like I did not deserve him because he was more attractive than me. Then, after 2 years, we had sex, and it was literally the worst sex of my life. It was just, hey, flip over, followed by the most unsexy, uncoordinated hip slapping ever. There was zero technique. It was shockingly bad. He had a few girlfriends throughout the time I knew him, and at that moment, it was no shock to me that he could not keep any of them around. Story 52. She has an abrasive attitude that she passes off as edginess. It is tragic because she has very interesting hobbies and is physically beautiful. Story 53. It was high school. A guy I had known for years, and I just kind of hit it off one night at a homecoming game. We were flirting and talking. It was enough that the next day all my friends were asking me about it and were excited with me. A couple of days later, he showed up outside my class. It was B period, meaning it was a class I had after normal school hours. I was excited because I thought he was going to ask me out. No. He told me about how he had a dream about me and asked if I had a dream about him because it felt so real and so right. I was 15 and severely freaked out. I didn't really talk to him after that. That killed my crush pretty quickly. Story 54. Started feeling like her father, including being ditched on weekends to hang out with her friends and not responding to my texts until Monday. Story 55. I don't know if I would say I was really into him, but one guy I dated would always compare his life to others around him and complain about not being where he wanted to be. Yet, he did absolutely nothing to get to where he thought he should be. Success doesn't just magically happen. There was another guy I went on a few dates with. We went to a park for a walk. He could not choose which way to go every time the path split. He just stood there, hesitated, and waited for me to choose. The entire pathway was completely visible. Just pick a direction and go. Story 56. Not being able to hold a conversation, with me literally being the only one talking. Story 57. Sitting on the couch having a conversation, and I'm under a blanket. He shifts, and somehow his toenail is long enough that it cuts me through the blanket. I say, "Ow, what was that?" And he says, "Oh, you have cats. Maybe it was a claw stuck in the blanket." As I'm saying goodbye, I notice that my foot is bleeding, and it definitely is not from something like a cat claw. I look at his foot as he's putting on shoes, and it is obvious it was his long nails that cut me. I wave goodbye and haven't invited him over since. The cut got infected. That very much ended it. Story 58. She wrote on her Instagram notes, "No more alcohol," which meant she got drunk the night before. She called herself perfect, so after that, I stopped thinking about her completely. Story 59. I was explaining something fairly simple, and she shrugged, saying, "You are the smart one. I do not need to know that." Story 60. He told me that he was entitled to a woman's time and space. He insisted that women owe it to him to let him prove he is a good guy. This was a big red flag, and I blocked him after that. Story 61. Treated my friends poorly. It was like the rose-colored glasses I was wearing shattered in an instant, and I realized they did not want me to have friends. They wanted me all to themselves. I felt like an object or an accessory. Story 62. Lack of accountability. Nothing diminishes my attraction more than feeling alone in a relationship. Story 63. Cheap. Always mentioning how much money something costs, whether it is a meal or a refrigerator needed. I am okay with paying for meals on a date sometimes if it is with someone I am in a relationship with or paying my half. But when you say you will pay for a meal or ask me to go shopping with you for your new refrigerator and then complain that I am spending your money, it is a real turnoff. Story 64. I told him I did not like how he kept canceling our dates less than an hour before they started. He then gradually stopped responding to me. He was an old high school crush I still had feelings for. Sad times. Story 65. She did not form her own opinions and only repeated posts from Facebook. Story 66. A lot of things, but believing in ghosts, astrology, and just generally being a crystal girl was the last straw for me. I will not sit here telling others what to believe or how to live their life, but that stuff is all nuts to me. I would not want to date someone who is religious, and that type of stuff is honestly no better. Story 67. I was a freshman in high school. There were two blonde girls who were juniors that I hung around. One saw me like a little brother. The other was, in my opinion, very attractive at that time, and she was fun and funny. I wanted to date her badly. One day we were walking to lunch and one mentioned pepperoni pizza. The one I liked said, "Ew, pepperoni. Makes me fart." And she went from a 10 to a 2 in my eyes. I was young. Pepperoni and pineapple pizza were the only pizzas that mattered, and I loved them. I was raised by women whose farts were atrocious, so I left that friend group. Now I am older and more mature, but this story still makes me laugh thinking back on how drastic the change in my feelings was. Story 68. Mansplaining. I cannot stand it when you are talking about something you clearly know about, and the man explains it to you as if you are an idiot. Just stop. Men do this all the time. Story 69. It was plain. I am honestly not interested in having my sexual needs unmet. Story 70. I had a huge crush in high school. I thought he was smart, handsome, and super cool. When he rejected me, I was heartbroken. A few years later, we met randomly at a party, and he was suddenly very into me. I was over the crush by then, but he was still handsome, and it was flattering to finally be appreciated. We made out for a long time, then we just chatted through the night, catching up. From what he was saying, I realized that he was rather stupid and very bigoted. I lost all interest in him immediately. I went home without sleeping with him and never met him again. I do wonder sometimes what sex with him would be like. I guess I'll never know. Story 71. His immaturity at his older age, and I heard him wish bad upon someone else. That is an immediate disqualification for me. Story 72. A big muscular guy, really cute, asked me one day if I would invite my friends over so we could all beat him up. I told him we are punk rock girls. You do not want us beating you up. Anyway, you. Story 73. She made me a drink with tap water from the bathroom sink. Story 74. In my opinion, being rude in general completely kills the attraction. Someone could be a 10 in looks, but with a bad personality, they become a 0 in my book. Story 75. We had Chinese food one night while watching The Simpsons. She had one of those exaggerated laughs where it starts with a huge expulsion of air. So every time she laughed, there was rice flying out of her mouth. I was disgusted, but I still let her perform oral sex because she was a cute redhead with large breasts. Then, after she left, I was cleaning up and picked up her half-empty bottle of Pepsi to throw it out, and I saw about a ton of rice floating around in it. I wanted to vomit. I never called her again. It's petty, I know, but that behavior is so unpleasant that not even large breasts and oral sex make up for it. Story 76. Always having to be right or have their opinion heard, but when you share your ideas, they are not engaged or do not challenge them. I think generally getting to know a person's personality or lack thereof typically does the trick. Story 77. Love bombing has become incredibly unattractive to me. Some men just decide they like blonde curls and assume that having them makes me the ideal partner. Guess what? I come with a whole personality too, and it is not the easiest. Story 78. Did not want to meet my friends. I think that is the weirdest thing ever. Story 79. I told myself I would never date again. Then a pretty woman asked me out. This was maybe 2008. On the first date, she told me how she left her husband during his serious medical diagnosis, drained their bank account, and moved back to the United States. She said, "I didn't sign up for this." She also asked bluntly what my salary was. Check please. Story 80. Being frugal is good, but being a cheapskate is a turnoff. Story 81. They expressed interest in me. I do not date people with such low standards. Story 82. I went on a holiday with her, and she complained nonstop about nearly everything. She ruined most of the trip. Story 83. I realized he has a white knight complex and was obsessing over a woman 20 years younger than him who was good at pretending to be helpless. Story 84. A night at a Western bar where I tried everything to be silly, only to realize he was a murdering monster who worked as a contractor in Afghanistan by choice multiple times. Then he had the audacity to complain about what he saw. I tried to get over it later, but just couldn't at all. I was disgusted. I tried to overlook what he did, but I couldn't. Story 85. Lying. Calls everything into question. Once trust is gone, what is the point? Story 86. Their political opinions on Facebook were so gross and disgusting. When you spew so much hate for anyone, it is a very big turn-off. Why be so unnecessarily hateful towards someone you have never met? I love people who radiate positive vibes, have a sense of humor, and are just non-problematic overall. Story 87. His shallow and insecure tendencies surfaced, and it was a total turnoff. Story 88. Not really into him, but he was attractive. Then I discovered he was into drugs, and all attractiveness disappeared. Story 89. I am married now and happy, but when I was younger and dating, I smoked. I thought everything was about me. I overreacted to small situations, relied on others for everything, and did not take initiative. These were the main things that affected my ability to develop romantic interests. Story 90. Morphing into a toxic, possessive, and manipulative partner. When we first met, we got along well. She was very sweet and fun to hang out with, and we hit it off. That changed one night when we were talking, and I was extremely tired. I accidentally fell asleep during our text session because I worked early morning shifts, and she insisted on late night talks. The next morning, I had a bad feeling and checked our messages. She sent me, numerous sad gifs, like crying and teary-eyed faces, and then revealed that she had used a razor blade to cut herself on her wrists and thighs to feel something. She said it was because I fell asleep on her. That should have been my sign to leave, but I ignored it due to desperation and our shared interests. This behavior continued until we broke up in January. I cut all contact, and I haven't seen or heard from her since. I am happier than ever. Story 91. Discovering firsthand that their dental condition was severe. Story 92. She had some unconventional theories about the government. Story 93. Controlling behavior, verbally abusing me, acting nice the rare times we had company, non-stop negativity, complaining about everything, everyone, and every place. Story 94. Changing their opinions to agree with me as soon as they realized I had different opinions. Story 95. My cousin and I went on a double date to see the first Hunger Games movie. Her date was very rude to staff and other diners because it was very crowded, but he was the one who chose the bar side of the restaurant. Then he got mad at her after the movie because she and I had the occasional whisper, appreciating the accurate representation of the book we had just finished reading. She did not want to talk to him. He was trying to speak at a higher volume than appropriate, while our quiet chit-chat was a quick wow, that's exactly how I pictured it, every now and then, maybe 5 times during the whole movie. She ended the relationship after that date. Story 96. No communication or frequent last-minute cancellations. If you did not want to hang out or whatever, just say that. Story 97. He kept a mental record of everything I did that made me a less than ideal partner and would bring it up unexpectedly. Story 98. Dated a man who could not make a single solid decision about anything. Story 99. She used a racial slur. I understand. I am a 40-something construction worker, and I might look like I would be okay with that. But that is not acceptable. I am too old to try to fix that behavior. Story 100. I cannot acknowledge that other men are attractive. I am not asking you to have sex with them, but at least be comfortable enough in your own masculinity to admit that other men are attractive. Story 101. She cheated on her girlfriend with me. I had been seeing her for a little while, but we weren't exclusive. Then, a new girl started working at her store, and they began seeing each other and quickly became exclusive. I was heartbroken because I was absolutely in love with her. We still chatted and hung out because lesbians can rarely have a clean break. Things happened, one thing after another, and I was happy at the time. The next morning, I felt awful and expected her to feel the same way. She was very casual about it. It didn't affect her in the slightest. It was almost sociopathic how little she cared. That was the moment my respect for her and myself just plummeted. She is married to another woman now, and so am I. I feel sorry for her wife. Story 102. She treated a waitress poorly and then acted like it was nothing. Story 103. He confided in me that he listened daily to Rush Limbaugh. Story 104. She said, I cannot wait for the winter when I can stop doing all the things I found attractive about her. This killed all momentum and threw me for a loop. I thought she was perfect up until that point. Story 105. She rolled up behind me at a store and slid her hand into my back pocket. I was working, supporting a woman with autism, and my coworker saw it happen and was mortified. In a different context, such as at a bar, I might have been into it, but surprising me like that while working and both of us sober was just creepy. Story 106. Smoking every single time. A woman can be charismatic, smart, funny, beautiful, and all around perfect, but if she smokes, hard pass. Story 107. All for one person. She admitted she never votes but complains about society. Couldn't read a book because it was written by a woman and said, I don't trust women. Thought it was okay to go to concerts and stay in hotels with people she had a sexual history with. Wanted to date without the label and take it slow while teasing me with sexually charged comments. She never reached out first. She made rules for herself and then broke them, falling into shame spirals. She would share very personal traumatic things, and I would be supportive, but when I brought them up again later, she'd forget she ever told me. Why? Why did I stay so long that I collected so many red flags? She is my age, beautiful, weird, and I really liked her cats. She could make me laugh and was rather smart, but she had some massive blind spots and red flags. Now it's hard to even just be friends. I love her, but she scares me. Story 108. In our first date at a Thai restaurant, once we got the check to pay for the dinner, I put my card on the check. He took my card and threw it arrogantly at me while saying, "You're just a student. I will pay." Later that night, he texted me saying, "So do you think we match?" Story 109. I can get attention from anyone. I even have someone giving me attention right now. Good for you, you are a woman in Seattle. Story 110. She began to be very hostile toward everyone who had a different political view than her own. Story 111. She was giving mixed signals. If you want to play fetch, get a dog. Story 112. Chewing with her mouth open. I mentioned to her that it bothered me and that it is flat out rude. She did not stop doing it. It is time for "it is not me, it is you." Story 113. I was talking to this guy for months, and I liked him first. One day, he told me that he had been talking to another girl for about a week. He gave me so much false hope. We were in a situationship, but he left, and that's okay. However, he told me, "I didn't give you any hope. I am angry that he chose another girl he likes, but also angry that he tries to seem so innocent. I don't like him now." Story 114. Being stopped by the police, he was escorted away in handcuffs. Story 115. When their 275-pound, 6-foot, 5-inch husband walks in and kisses them on the lips and says, "Is this twig bothering you?" Story 116. He looked me dead in the eye and told me he did not need to get a real job because he was going to start trading non-fungible tokens. Story 117. They get really angry at video games, like excessively angry. They also liked correcting me when I misspoke, but if I ever did the same to them, they would get annoyed. Story 118. He sucked on his tea bags after his tea was done steeping. Story 119. Her bathroom. Why would you invite a woman you want to have sex with to your place if your toilet is not clean, your shower has buildup, and there are rings of grime on everything? Story 120. Being yelled at for dripping water on the floor after I did the dishes for the second time that day, while they have not done them in years. Literally. Story 121. Insisted on carrying the weight of the world to a destination that would keep her as the director of the Gaslight Ranch. I hope she has been doing honest work on herself. She deserves far more than she could see back then. Story 122. Insisted on carrying the weight of the world to a destination that would keep her as the director of the Gaslight Ranch. I hope she has been doing honest work on herself. She deserves way more than she could see back then. Story 123. His hypocrisy is evident. He constantly complains about this but does the exact opposite. Additionally, he is an unsatisfactory partner. Story 124. They are polyamorous. This happens way too often in my city. Story 125. She asked why I had not married. I told her it was because I largely saw marriage as a structure to raise a family, and since I did not want children, it was not a priority. She then proceeded to tell me how much she wanted children and could not wait to be, her words, barefoot and pregnant. She was absolutely gorgeous, too. Such is life. Story 126. A man was complaining to me and my friends about a girl he knew for at least 20 minutes. For good reasons, she was pretty awful. He said he couldn't stand her, that she takes advantage of people, she's annoying, and a terrible client. The very next day, he tags her in a story saying how she's amazing and one of the coolest people he has ever met, and how he can't wait to see her next. Story 127. When they said, participate in conversation or don't, doesn't bother me, I told them about all the mental problems I have suffered since I moved, and how it made me put up my walls to avoid oversharing or being hurt. There is more to this, but that is all I will share. They are happy, and it made me wake up and bow out of the dating game. Story 128. He said he was going to catch some quick rays. That is all it took for the illness. You never can tell what will get you. Story 129. 7th grade. I spent all summer eager to see my crush again. On the first day of school, he wore a Hawaiian shirt. I got the ick, and my crush disappeared instantly. Story 130. When she grew tentacles out of her mouth, transformed into an alien creature, and ate my dog, it killed my attraction right then and there. I never saw her the same way ever since. Story 131. Love posts like this. The comments remind me that people leave over anything and everything these days, even when they loved or once loved the person. Welcome to the new world. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.